Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name is Nathaniel and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm a little bit broken today, mate, to be completely honest. Competed in my first amateur strongman competition yesterday. I am feeling very sore, but ready to talk some hockey. So my body hurts, but my mind is sharp.
You did all right though, from what I've heard. That you said you
Yeah,
did.
reasonable performance for a first time. Yeah, still quite new to the sport, but yeah, it was a good day. Plenty to learn moving forward, and yeah, moved some big heavy stuff. So yeah, it was a good day.
There's a fourth line grinder in you yet.
Oh, for sure. I can go undrafted.
You could go undrafted. You could be the next, like straight out of the NHL franchise mode, like be a pro.
Yeah,
Right. Starting
maybe in the
fights for one.
AHL.
Yeah, like ECHL or if they're playing still.
Yeah,
But right, shall we talk some hockey? And talking about some strongman performances, we're actually going to be leading off with a division I don't think we've actually ever led off with, and that being the Atlantic Division. A division full of wins. But we'll start off with first place overall team, up 2 spots, is the Detroit Red Wings. Yep, they're back on top again.
yep,
58 points to set on with a record of 27, 15, and 4. They played 3 games, 3 wins against the Senators, Canucks, and the Habs. So, what do you think about Red Wings' rise yet again?
yeah. Back up on it again. Some more good goaltending. Gibson getting that shutout in the 4-0 win. Patrick Kane hitting 500 goals. Massive achievement. Even though it pains me to see him in a Detroit jersey, you know he will always be a Blackhawk for me. But yeah, massive achievement from him, and this team is playing some absolutely sensational hockey at the moment. They're on a great run of form. Everyone's chipping in with the goals and the assists. Van Riemsdyk, Raymond, Kopp, Larkin, DeBrincat, like everyone's chipping in. Everyone's doing their bit. And keeping this team in contention at the top of the division, which is, super impressive. And, we may start having to look at punching a ticket to the playoffs for Detroit if they keep playing this way.
Yeah, I just can't believe they're maintaining that same level and getting 3 wins in a week is a really strong effort as well. Albeit the Canucks are a layup and the Senators, as we'll get onto them, are struggling at the moment. But then you go up against the Canadiens and beat them 4-0 in Montreal. I think that was a statement win for this Red Wings team.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
They have games against the Hurricanes, Bruins, and Sharks in the week coming up, so a bit all over the place, to be fair. But again, there's not much more really to say about them. I think they're just doing very, very solidly, and they're just in there for the in the running, really.
Yeah, absolutely. They're, let's hope they can keep this momentum going into the Olympic break, and hopefully they can pick back up when it starts coming to crunch time.
Yep. Now, the second place team in this division, down a spot this week, and I think it's down to the fact they've only played 2 games. But for me, it's the best team in this division. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're sat on 57 points, record of 27, 13, and 3. But they're on a plus 39, which is way above everybody else in this division. Played 2 games against the Avalanche, which they won 4-2. And then they beat the Philadelphia Flyers in Philly 7-2. So, and then Kucherov with 6 points in 2 games, and Hagel with 3 points in 2 games as well. And solid goaltending by Vasilevsky as well. I think they're just the most rounded team, and they would be on top if they played a third game.
Yeah, I think so. We've been saying all season that this team is the best team in this division. I think for me, I know they started a bit slowly, but another good couple of wins for them. Obviously, getting that win on home ice against the Avalanche was massive, and that was a really good game as well. Kucherov just absolutely going off this week and is on course for another terrific season. Yeah, it's going to be a battle, I think, between them and Detroit. I think for this top spot, I do think Tampa will take it, just because they've got all the pieces there. They're an offensive juggernaut, and not only that, they've got Andrei Vasilevsky, right at the back end between the pipes. So they're on a bit of a road trip. Obviously, they started against the Flyers in that 7-2 victory. They've then got another game against the Flyers tonight. And then the Penguins and the Blues coming up afterwards. So, I think a bit more of the same from this Tampa team. Again, another team who's looking more and more playoff bound as the weeks go by.
Yeah, yeah, I think they're a shoe-in. I think there's a bit of a dogfight for me between the other teams to get the final two spots, and very potentially they could claim both wildcard spots if all of these teams' form continues. But yeah, I still find my money's on Tampa
Yeah,
in this
definitely.
division. Yeah. We'll talk about this third team in this division then, down a spot again because of Detroit's rise. 56 points is the Montreal Canadiens. Record 25, 14 and 6. They played 3 games this week and they handily beat the Calgary Flames 4-1 and the Panthers 6-2 before that really weird 4-0 loss to the Red Wings. So, again, still going strong, the Canadiens. Obviously, one of them had to lose that game. It was the Canadiens, but other than that, it's win-win-win.
Yeah, they're another team playing really well, and what an acquisition as well that Alex Texier was. Someone who's been somewhat of a peripheral a peripheral guy throughout his throughout his time in the NHL. But 26 years old, he's found a new home in Montreal, and he seems to have really stuck there. He's played really well since coming in. Obviously, got the hat trick, and he's on the French Olympic team, and he's having a really terrific season. So always nice when someone who kind of muddles around a little bit finds a consistent home. Yeah, a bit of a weird loss, wasn't it, to the Red Wings? But like you said, someone had to lose that game. So I think 4-0. I think they'll be slightly disappointed with. They'll just be hoping to bounce back. I mean, obviously they're only a couple of points off of the top of this division. They're just a team who've maybe struggled with a little bit of consistency this season. They've had some off weeks. But they've got the Canucks, the Capitals, the Sabres, and the Senators coming up. So there's definitely some wins on the table for them. And there'll be another team, as we move within kind of a few weeks of the Olympic break, will be looking to keep that momentum up and keep themselves kind of within that third spot if they can.
Yeah. And just going back to Texier, yeah, I mean, to speak about one person's garbage is another person's treasure. As someone who loves a good rummage around a charity shop from time to time, I just think it's great how a player can seemingly find their home after years of drifting around and put some good performances, and hopefully that might be able to set him up for a decent contract for a player at his level and some stability, and can really push forward him and represent French hockey as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, he's on a 1-year deal at the moment. He's got a cap hit of $1 million. He's not going to be a guy making ridiculous amounts of money, but he might be able to double it. Might be able to double it in his next contract. Maybe if he can get 3-4 years at a couple of million, you'd take that every day of the week, wouldn't you?
Good word. Absolutely. I know we've said it all year. We like this team. It's young. Looking at the top point scorers, they've got 5 players all at 35 plus points. That they're a well-rounded team. It's not just one player going off. They're a team, obviously a bit inconsistent, but also can put it together for in the playoffs. I think they're well-rounded.
Definitely.
Right. We're moving to the 4th place team in this division then, and up a spot again this week, the Buffalo Sabres. Who would have thought it? Record of 24, 15 and 4. They're on 52 points, so they're not even that far off the top here. They're on a +6 now. I remember them being buried in the minuses at the start of the year as well. But 3 games this week, 3 wins. albeit against the Canucks, who we know are probably tanking this year, the Rangers, who are insufferable, and the Ducks, who are struggling at the moment as well. But that being said, 3 wins out of 3 is fantastic, and they're shooting the way up this division.
Yeah, they are, and they were right around the doldrums of the bottom of the standings this year, and we've ripped on Buffalo more or less most of the season, but they're on an absolutely terrific streak over the last sort of 10 to 15 games. They've been absolutely brilliant. Really kind of piecing everything together. Another 2 goals and assists from Josh Doan, who I was saying last week how that was. I'm really glad he's been able to come into this Buffalo team and be impactful. And you've got Tuck and Thompson as well, both with a couple of goals and assists. I'm hoping that this shuffle around in the back office, I'm hoping that will allow them to get a deal over the line for Alex Tuck. I don't believe that there's any sort of update on his contract situation. I don't believe he's signed a new one. To my knowledge, but he is a free agent at the end of the season. So depending if he wants to stick around in Buffalo or if he fancies trying his hand somewhere else, they'll be hoping, I think, to try and get that wrapped up if they can.
Well, so we know we have our views of the Sabres team, and they've changed a lot of their management, and that sort of sent them on this win streak potentially. I still have in the back of my mind that typical Buffalo fashion isn't always that they just suck and they're always at the bottom. They generally are in every year, with a slight chance of making a push for a wild card spot. And this season might not be any different, and they could well now go on a 15-game losing streak and fall all the way back down again. It's something they could quite likely do. But in that building, the new management behind the scenes, an upturn in form, it might be something that might convince Tuck to re-sign fall into that old chestnut. Things are going to be different now. It remains to be seen. I'm still on the side of caution. But yeah, I mean, if you Tuck, you might want to re-sign and be the face. It might be an opportunity to say or to show that you're the face of this team and can lead it and be that star player. If you traded elsewhere, you might be overshadowed by other players. But we'll see with Buffalo. Again, they're in talking conversation. At least they're not at the bottom sucking every week. There are some interesting conversations to be had.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It makes it a lot easier, doesn't it, to re-sign one of your key players if you're on a hot run of form. So I'm sure they'll be trying to ramp up those conversations. I know Jarmo Kekalainen, the GM, has said that he really wants to try and get that done. So that'll be kind of a big one to keep an eye on over the coming weeks, I think.
Yeah. Not sure if we've touched on it already, but they've got 4 games coming up this next week against homestand against the Panthers, Flyers, Habs, and the Wild. So we'll see. We'll see how they get on, really. But we'll move on then to the 5th place team in this division, upper spot. Another team who've had a good week of it is the Boston Bruins. Also sat on 52 points with a record of 25, 19 and 2. They started off the week with a 7-4 loss in Seattle against the Kraken. Seemed like an entertaining game there for Seattle. And then they've had a range of victories. They beat the Flames 4-1. And then they played the Rangers, albeit it was at home. It wasn't at MSG, but they beat them 10-2. And then to continue that rich vein of scoring form, they then beat the Penguins 1-0 last night. So a nice defensive shutout win. So a bit up and down, but 3 wins on the board. So yeah, good going.
Yeah, they've had looking down the point scorers this week. Obviously, Pasternak with 9 points across those 4 games. Kudnadinov with 4 goals and 3 assists. Obviously, he got a hat trick in that game against the Rangers. Just what an absolute array of victories. Showing that they can dial the offense up against the Rangers and they just absolutely blew them away. And then to be kind of quite defensively resolute in that victory against the Penguins, Korpisalo getting the shutout. That's his first of the season. So good for him, good for this team. uh, like you said, there's so many teams in this division that are just on absolute heaters at the moment. They've got the Red Wings and the Kraken coming up at home, and then they are on the road to the Blackhawks. So for my sake, I'm hoping that offense cools down a little bit before they face Chicago. But yeah, they're again in a position to move up this division, but everyone else around them is also just picking up wins left, right, and center. So it's been a really interesting, exciting week.
Yeah. It must be so frustrating when you're just winning games left and right, but yet you're still sat in fifth and you're not moving up because everyone else is winning as well. So it's kind of they're all just moving up together. Um, but we'll move on to the sixth place team in this division then. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Another team with 3 games, another team with 3 wins. So they're up 2 spots. They're off the bottom of the division now, 51 points, and now they're right back in it. A record of 22, 15, and 7. They're sat on a +8 now. So they're coming back, Matt. They are. The results are showing it. They're on their way back up.
Yeah, as is everyone else. But yeah, 3 games and 3 wins. Obviously clutching up that overtime win against the Flyers. And a 5-0 win against the Canucks. Wall getting the shutout there as well. Which is great for him. He's got 2 shutouts on the season now. So yeah, again, great for Wall. Obviously, I know he's had his personal issues this season. But really good for them to, obviously I know Nylander missed a couple of games. Obviously he's kind of getting himself back in there, and they're still generating plenty of offense. And they're certainly on their way back. They've got a road trip coming up with the Avalanche, the Mammoth, the Golden Knights, the Jets. So potentially on paper, some relatively tricky games. I know the Jets have been absolutely awful recently, but that's not going to be an easy run of games for sure. So we'll see where they're at this time next week. But certainly at the moment, they are making their way back up this division.
The return of Wall has really had a positive impact for them. He's now played the most games out of their 5 goaltenders they played this year, but he's the only one, other than Hildeby, who's been a secret sort of source. To be fair, he's done all right in his games, but you've seen in terms of wins, Wall is getting the results needed, and I think that's a big driver about them coming up in this division, winning more games.
Yeah, massively.
Stolarz was struggling. Hildeby's got 4 wins in 16 games, but he's still on a 2 goals against average and a +900 save percentage. But when you look at Wall, who's 2.52 goals against, 921 save percentage in 17 games, he's got 10 wins and 2 shutouts. So he's showing that he's one goalkeeper, and it's probably what they needed, this team. Very feisty market, so I don't think they're quite happy yet, but they're on the way.
For sure. Let's hope for their sake and for the fan base's sake that they can kind of continue the run.
Yeah. Now, this is where we go on to where the teams are losing in this division. Down 3 spots to 7th is the Florida Panthers, a team who I was kind of hyping up last week, but goes to show that I know absolutely nothing. Record 23, 18, and 3 on a -7. They're in the depths of a long road trip at the moment, the Panthers, and they went up to face Toronto and lost 4-1. They went to Montreal and lost 6-2 in the division, and then they went away to Ottawa and beat the Senators 3-2 in their building. So they come away with 1 win, 2 losses, but that to see them sort of cut a bit adrift from the rest of these teams.
Yeah, it does, and I suppose that's the difficulty when you play interdivisional games and don't come out on top. Obviously, they got that victory against the Senators, but losses against the Maple Leafs and the Habs, and quite heavy defeats as well, 4-1 and 6-2. Just really struggling in those games. It has left them, in a position where they're kind of risking being cut adrift from this division. Obviously, they've got the Sabres coming up in their next game tonight, which will be a tough one with the way that they're playing at the moment. They've then got the Hurricanes and the Capitals, which again, not a couple of easy games there whatsoever. So, yeah, it's gonna be tricky for them for sure. And it'll just be a case of them having to dig deep and try and recapture some of that form that's done so well for them over the last few years. But they are struggling at the moment.
They're struggling, but we look at some of these other teams and things like that. They've got a well-rounded, like their top 5 players, scoring-wise, pretty much match what the Canadians are putting up. The goaltenders, they're running with 2 goaltenders, Bobrovsky and Tarasov, who are both stats-wise doing, for the most part, all right. They just seem to be on the losing end of games rather than winning the game. So I'm not quite doubling down and saying that this is a great team in disguise, because they might be the ones who missed the playoffs this year, but I still think they are better than what the results are showing. I think that's where I sit down on it.
Yeah, massively. And as we're seeing in the league as a whole this year, and I've got a couple of stats for later in the show to kind of sort of back that up a touch, but with how tight the league is this year, they have come out on the wrong end of a few results, and with how tight everything's been this year, like that's making the difference. It's cutting them a few points where they maybe should have got, whether it be like even just a point in overtime or something like that. Would have put them in a much healthier spot, but it's just so competitive this year that you can't afford to be on the wrong end of the coin flip, and they have been too many times this season, I think.
Yeah. And then we move on to the last team in this division. I've labelled them kind of the Berserker team, and that continues both on the ice and now off the ice, it appears. But the Ottawa Senators getting cut adrift at the bottom here on 45 points down the spot. Record at 20-19-5. They played 4 games this week and lost all 4. Red Wings 5-3, Mammoth 3-1, Avalanche 8-2, and then the 3-2 loss to the Panthers. They're struggling without Linus Ullmark in there. Merrilainen has not been cutting it out, has not been doing well at all, really. So this is a team kind of in a bit of free fall.
Yeah, they're a team who've, they've struggled this season with absences, haven't they? Obviously, they lost Kachuk for an extended period, and now they're missing Ullmark, and especially whilst I know that the Ullmark's maybe not had the season that everyone would have expected, he is still an NHL starter. He is still a very good goaltender. He had 14 victories and a shutout in 28 games, so he was playing reasonably well. But Merrilainen's just really struggling, and this last week, I mean, he's on an .866 save percentage for the season, 3.48 goals against. He's had a rough go of it this week, and unfortunately, the offense just isn't backing them up enough on the other end. I mean, Giroux got a goal and 3 assists this week. Jake Sanderson got 4 assists in 4 games as well, but the big boys on this team just haven't necessarily been stepping up as much as they would have liked or needed. And then obviously there's all the off ice stuff, which I'm kind of hesitant to talk about and don't kind of really want to go too far into it. But in essence, there's been some really quite serious rumours being floated around about everything going on inside the Ottawa Senators kind of dressing room this week. The Sens came out very quickly and kind of squashed that and said that was absolutely kind of ridiculous, and people were trying to sort of sabotage their season and everything. And by the sounds of it, they are kind of completely foundless rumours. But nevertheless, it's still a lot of outside noise that does create issues for a team when you're already struggling. And, potentially, when players' families are being brought into it. I know Elliot Friedman touched on it heavily in 32 Thoughts this week, but for me, that's way over the line.
It is. It impacts people's livelihoods, and it's just unnecessary. And I don't know where they're coming from or anything like that, but it's the power of social media, isn't it? Things get traction, and then it just spirals out of control. But the bottom end of this, I mean, we're very mental health positive on this podcast. If a player goes out indefinitely for a personal absence, we 100% support. Not that people care about what we think, but obviously take as much time as you want, look after yourself, things like that. Life is more important than hockey. But if what Linus Ullmark is going through is completely unrelated to any of these rumours and is actually something going on in his life, this is just not helping him at all. And as humans, it's just ridiculous to see that we're being so heartless to somebody who could be going through something quite serious just for some clicks and rage bait and everything like that. So it really leaves a bad taste in my mouth, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, kind of trolls, for lack of a better word, have existed on social media since the dawn of it, and they always will exist on social media. And I know that spirals into a way bigger conversation about kind of anonymity on social media and particularly the targeting of people of prominence, and it does seem to happen with athletes quite a lot. And I think there's a general assumption that because they're athletes and they get paid a lot of money, then people should be able to say whatever they want to them behind the guise of a social media handle. But everyone's human at the end of the day, and like you said, nothing is more important than your own health and well-being. And all of this is just adding fuel to a fire that's already sort of burning for Linus Ullmark at the moment, and not something that's needed. So I hope for his sake that he's being able to kind of drown out the noise and get everything that he needs right now, and hopefully we see him back as and when he's ready. But as we've said, when guys have taken spells and leaves of absences for personal reasons this year, just focus on himself, focus on his family and everything, and just come back when you're ready, because there isn't anything more important than that.
Shall we talk plays of the week and lighten the mood up a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, it's a good place to leave it. We'll move into plays of the week, and I think this is, whilst we've seen the negative side of the internet, I think this particular play of the week is perhaps highlighting the best corners of the internet, and the amount of memes I've seen this week of this. But I'll let you lead that, Nathaniel.
Yeah. So we're jumping ahead into essentially the Central Division. St. Louis Blues playing a particularly not a very nice game, not very good game for them. We'll cover that in this sort of segment. But it comes a moment where you can see Jim Montgomery is getting frustrated with Jordan Binnington's shock and his performance, and is looking to pull him from the game. You can see him looking around for Joel Hofer to put him into the game. Binnington seems to be like not wanting to come off the ice. It's a bit comedic in all respects. But then all of a sudden, the camera and whoever the cameraman is that game, he's a living legend in the NHL world at this point, because he is the only one who manages to locate Joel Hofer. He zooms in down the players' tunnel, and you can just see a little goalie mask sticking around the corner of a corridor wall. And it just looks like Joel Hofer is hiding from Jim Montgomery. Now, I'm sure there's a fairly legitimate reason for how that went out. I haven't seen if there's been an announcement since, but in this fairyland of where I'm looking at, I'm just thinking he's run off down the tunnel, peeking around, trying to hide, and Jim Montgomery's losing his mind trying to find where his backup goaltender is.
It was just absolutely brilliant, and like you said, whoever the cameraman was who was able to find him needs a raise, a bonus, anything like that. And for me, it was the really like slow zoom. The really sort of slow zoom in down the tunnel, just seeing Hoffa just peeking around the corner to try and hide from his head coach, and you've got confusion on the bench. You've got Jordan Binnington not knowing if he's coming or going. Montgomery losing his mind over his missing backup. It was just absolutely brilliant, and the fact that it all happened whilst the Blues were getting absolutely waxed by the Chicago Blackhawks was made it all the sweeter for me. But it was it was just a brilliant showing, and a great play from Hoffa.
I remember watching I was laying in bed, watch hockey on my phone, because obviously the late night games, etc. And I'm flicking through, and I think another game went to intermission or something, so I stuck on that game and just to see how we're getting on. And then within a minute or two, that happened, and I just couldn't help myself. I was just laughing my head off in bed. My wife was utterly confused and befounded as to what was going on, and even though I tried to explain it, it didn't make any sense. I think you just kind of I don't know. It's just daft. And no, it wasn't technically like a hockey play or anything like that. I think when you have moments like that, you can't really stage something like that. That it just happened. It just certain conditions just had to be met all in a row, and it was just glorious.
It happened so organically, and it was. I think that was the absolute beauty of it. Are we leading into the Central Division off of the back of that?
Yeah, why not? Let's do the Central. No shocks, no changes here. Top of the division, top of the league, Colorado Avalanche, 73 points. They're now up to 4 regulation losses in this year. I think they're a bit rubbish, aren't they?
Absolute bums.
But no, I mean, they lost a game against the Lightning 4-2, which you drop games here and there, and the Lightning obviously are a very, very good team. They then came out and beat the Senators 8-2, and then beat the Blue Jackets 4-0. Avalanche are avalanching. No change there. On a plus 80 now on the season. Mental.
Yeah, and shout out to Trent Miner, which getting a shutout in that victory against the Blues in his second game in the NHL. The 24-year-old goaltender. He was a selection. He was selected 202nd overall in the 2019 NHL draft. So 7th round pick, I think. They're getting some minutes in, and getting a shout out in his second appearance. So massive shout out Trent Miner. And
he comes from a family. His dad's called Trent Miner. His granddad's called Trent Miner. His great granddad's called Trent Miner.
100%. 100%.
That is a solid name. Yeah.
But look, this team's just doing what this team does. Yeah, they had a couple of back-to-back losses in some really tough games, and then they've come right out the other side of it with an 8-2 victory and a 4-0 shutout. So they've got the Maple Leafs and the Predators up at home next. Business as usual. They'll be right in there, and they will be the first team to clinch a playoff spot, which they'll have done fairly soon, I think.
I mean, for me, they've already clinched. Right. That team is not going to lose so many games to drop out the playoffs. They're in the playoffs. For me, we're going to be talking about when they clinched the top spot.
Yeah. It was more in an official capacity.
Oh, ish. They're confirmed already. Unless, they all get the Black Plague and the players are all hospitalised for weeks on end and they're playing, I don't know, Trent Miner as their first line centre for some reason. I don't know.
I'd still back him.
Still back him. We'll move into the second spot in this division. 12 points behind Colorado now. The Dallas Stars on 61 points, record of 26-10-9 on a plus 28. They've had a 3-3, Matt. Our first 3-3. A road trip, lost 6-3 against the Hurricanes, beat the Capitals 4-1, and then lost to the Sharks in overtime 5-4.
Yeah, I mean, look, this division's pretty much made out now, isn't it? We know the top 3 teams. I don't think anyone's catching him. Jason Robertson still with 5 points in 3 games. Still no new contract on the table yet for Jason Robertson. don't know what's going to happen there. I think that's probably the most interesting story, I think, in Dallas for the rest of the year is just what happens with Jason Robertson, obviously snubbed off of that US team for the Olympics. I have no doubt that Dallas will find a way of getting it done. They're usually very good at just sort of figuring it out and moving the pieces around. They've got a road trip, well, the continuation of their road trip coming up with the Kings, the Ducks, and the Mammoth before returning home to face the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, yeah, again, business as usual for Dallas. I think them and the next team, I think, are pretty locked in those three spaces in the Central.
Yeah, they are. Just a very solidly run, well-performing team. No obvious weaknesses. Have dropped a game or two, just like the next team, but they're just solid. And again, I'm not going to go so far as to say that they've confirmed a playoff spot yet, but I'd be very highly surprised that if they don't make it. The third team, also on 61 points, record 26, 11, and 9. I think they played one more game than the Stars. It is my Minnesota Wild. Another 3-3 performance this week. A bit middling, which is why Colorado have stretched it a little bit, but they lost 4-2 against the Kings. But Kevin Fiala always scores against us after we traded him away. It's frustrating as hell. But then a couple of overtime games. We beat Kraken 3-2, but then lost to the Islanders 4-3. So some close games for the Wild, and I think that's sort of trudging back to the start of the year when we had a bad run of form. Though we're flying, we are still prone to an odd close game here and there.
Yeah, and you're always going to be, night to night. But this team is awesome. Love watching them. Quinn Hughes has settled there perfectly. He looks absolutely terrific. Faber as well. Like what a pair that is going to be. And yeah, Kaprizov with 3 points in 3 games as well, sort of business as usual for him. They're on a plus 21. They're on 61 points. If you'd have spoken to me 10 games into the season, I just don't know if I ever would have thought Minnesota being in this position, but they are, and I'm dead happy for you and dead happy for Minnesota as as a team. They seem to have finally figured it out, and I really, really hope, not that he owes them anything, but I just hope that Minnesota show enough in the next 18 months for Hughes to sign there long term.
That is where I'm looking at now, and I'm hoping the cap space will allow it. Now I'm thinking, is a Kaprizov's contract, how big that is that going to be the thing that screws us out, the extra few million we need to sign Hughes?
Just give him the money, give him whatever he wants, just get him oh shit, we need to sign Quinn Hughes.
I mean, it's a very nice problem to have.
Oh yeah.
But the pessimist in me is still freaking out that something's going to go catastrophically wrong, and we're going to become Minnesota again. But I'm just going to try enjoy what we have with our two great goaltenders, our great team that's playing really well, and just try not to realize my impending doom that's going around in my head.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the thing is as well, what's great about this Minnesota team is it's not just Kaprizov and Hughes, is it? I mean, they've got Boldy, they've got Faber, they've got a great pair of goaltenders. They've got Johansson's having a good season, Eriksson X playing well. They do have a deep team. So I suppose if you're Quinn Hughes and you're looking at your opportunity to go and win, he's in a really good position where, he's going to be the top dog or, the joint top dog on this team. But there are still other pieces that are going to help him when he's maybe not feeling it on a night.
Yeah.
Just as one final little sort of touch on as well, just which again I think is a great piece of business from Minnesota. Having Matt Boldy on $7 million a year until the end of the 2029-30 season, unreal piece of business. What a deal that is. Potentially one of the most underpaid guys in the league with how he's playing. And you're seeing all these forwards, signing kind of 12, 13, 14 million dollar deals, and Boldy sat there on 7. But with his production, should definitely be making more. But that's some great management from Minnesota and some great negotiation there.
Well, this is how I'm going to view it. His extra few million that he should be getting is what's been used to top up the Kaprizov contract. I think Kirill's getting 10 million more per year for, at the moment, 2 extra points so far this season.
But if Boldy was making 10 and Kaprizov was making 14, absolutely no one would have an issue with that, would they? So, I think it swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it? I mean, he's going to hit UFA status at the age of 29. That next contract's going to be a beefy one, and let's hope the cap goes up enough in I mean, that's 2030's problem, but that great deal. Love Matt Boldy, great player.
Absolutely. We'll move into 4th place in this division, remaining in 4th place, some 13 points behind Utah Mammoth on 48 points, 22, 20, and 4 on the +9. They've had a good week themselves. They beat the Rangers in overtime, the Senators 3-1, the Blues 4-2, and lost in overtime last night to the Blue Jackets 3-2. Clayton Keller with 7 assists, no goals, but seven assists in his 4 games. So again, great. And Schmaltz, not signed a contract yet, is still producing. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Utah Mammoth?
Yeah, they're kind of like the best of the rest in this division at the moment. On a really nice run of form. Clayton Keller playing really well. 7 points from the 8 available. They're getting the good enough goaltending at the moment. Which I know we kind of highlighted as a bit of a problem here and there. But, they are playing really well, looking really good. Fresh off the news this past week as well, obviously, that next year's Winter Classic, the 2027 Winter Classic, is going to be held in Utah between the Utah Mammoth and the Colorado Avalanche. So that'll be a great game. Really, really good setting for some outdoor hockey. Mountains, snow, picturesque, not the Vice City experience that we had this year in Florida. But yeah, they look fantastic. Also, as well, just as one other touch, saw just again going back to the good side of social media, saw a TikTok from Lawson Krause's wife, where she was kind of had the camera following Krause around the ice with just the caption of like, how on earth can I tell him that I've absolutely like scraped the side of the car at the drive-through today? Like he's just playing this game. He's got absolutely no idea that I've just scraped the entire side of the car like down the wall at the drive-through. Apparently he took it very well afterwards and just said these things happen. So yeah, another bit of social media gold this week. So yeah, that was terrific. But yeah, I'm enjoying Utah a lot more now. They're a good team. I wish they weren't in the same division as the Blackhawks, but yeah, they're an entertaining watch.
Yeah, and I think Vemelka as well is the first goalkeeper to reach 20 wins this year. I think that's another one of those made-up stats, tracking stats to boost engagement. But, I mean, it is interesting. Like, for anyone in that stat, you would have thought it'd been someone in Colorado or, I know, Vasilevsky or someone somewhere else that would have got that. But no, it's Vemelka who's the first one to 20 wins this year. So, it goes to show that they've got, I guess, a good goaltender there. I mean, he's played 34 games, so it's a pretty heavy load for him. But yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
We'll go into the 5th place team in this division, and when I work out who that is, they're so far down the list. There we go. Nashville, good old Nashville. They were 4th last week. They're down in 5th. They're on 46 points, record of 21, 20, and 4. Still on a -23 on the year. They've another weird team results-wise. They lost 6-2 against the Oilers. Oilers beat the Islanders in a shootout 2-1. They lost against your Blackhawks 3-0, and then beat the Capitals 3-2. So a bit up and down this team, but they're doing all right.
Yeah, they're in that kind of weird purgatory at the moment where the wild card's still in touch. Like, they're not quite out of a playoff hunt yet. And then with the trade deadline rolling around, I mean, I know we've spoken at length about someone like Ryan O'Reilly being a great trade piece acquisition. I suppose it's just depending the direction that this Nashville team wants to go. You know, I mean, if they were to sneak into a wild card spot by hook or by crook, I could see them being a one and done series team. Now, potentially the return you could get for someone like Ryan O'Reilly would be really quite impressive, and someone who would garner a lot of interest. So they're in that kind of weird spot at the moment. They're kind of still kind of flirting with the wild card spots a little bit, but yeah, not for me, this Nashville team. But a decent week nonetheless. 4 points from 8, 500 on the week. No complaints there. Obviously, the Oilers, the Avalanche, and the Golden Knights coming up. So that's going to be a potentially a rough week for them coming up.
Yeah. I can't see this team being a playoff team, really. In my mind, some of the other teams in this division I much fancy Utah or as we'll go on to them, Chicago. That's what it's between for me personally. But yeah, they're doing fine. They're okay. They have to have some sort of middling to bottom end teams, and that's what they are in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll move on then into the sixth place team, up one spot. I just mentioned them, but it is your Chicago Blackhawks. Again, a bit of an up and down week for you. You smashed the Blues 7-3. You beat the Predators 3-0 in a shutout, and then you lost to the Capitals 5-1. But I think, from what I understand, and I'll stand corrected, but I think you've had a bit of illness in your camp, which has decimated your team a little bit this week.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they had that game against the Blues initially, second time this year on national television that they've absolutely pummeled the Blues. So great start to the week, and then they were absolutely ravaged by a flu bug or some sort of illness bug going through the camp. They had to call up Drew Commesso. They had to call up Kevin Korchinski the morning of. I mean, they'd literally taken the morning skate in Rockford with the Ice Hogs with the intent on playing the Chicago Wolves that evening. Before they know it, they're then on the bus over to Chicago. And then Commesso finds out that he's starting in goal that night against the Capitals, and he had a really rough go of it against the Caps. He let in 2 or 3 that were he really would want back, and it was quite a poor performance. But he followed that up with a shutout against Nashville, and Commesso is someone who is a really highly regarded goalie prospect, and I have no doubt will probably end up running tandem with Spencer Knight in the long term, which which is great for the team. They're also really close mates as well, are Commesso and Knight, so also nice. But at the moment, again, it's the young guys kind of leading the charge. Obviously, Bedard came back in that game against the Capitals, which was kind of one that you just need to ball up and throw away. But came back with 2 assists in that win against the Predators. Nick Lardis has got 2 goals and an assist in those 3 games. Oliver Moore with 2 goals and an assist in those games. And looking really good. Kevin Korchinski getting an assist against Nashville as well. And Matt Grzelcyk with 3 assists in the last 3 games. And he was someone who came in on a PTO deal at the start of the season. He was without a team. Had a bit of a kind of track record as a bit of like a power play 2 quarterback, quite an offensive type defenseman, but came in on a $1 million deal and has been fantastic for this Blackhawks team. I think he is probably someone who they might look to trade to open up a roster spot for one of these young defensemen, because they are kind of starting to get slightly log jammed with kind of prospects, and they kind of need to start making some space for them. So I think Matt Grzelcyk, I think Connor Murphy, I think Jason Dickinson all could find themselves, finding pastures new. By the sounds of it, the team has received a lot of calls about both Dickinson and Murphy. So, we'll see where they go. Again, you don't want to start just trading guys and kind of giving up on the season, especially with them being 3 points behind Utah. But I don't know. But at the moment, it's all the young guys who are kind of leading the charge. So get more of them in, and see what you can do with them.
Yeah, I like to see. Looking at it, you've scored 11 points, well, 11 goals in these 3 games, and if you have a goal and 2 assists on every single one of those sort of goals, I guess that's 33 opportunities for a point. And yet only 3 players have scored a point per game average over those 3 games, which suggests to me that a lot of players have got involved and gathered points this week for Chicago. So, yeah, Bedard is obviously your star player and is the franchise name, etc. But you've got a good group of people all chipping in with points and things like that. Also, Comesso coming in, as you said, I think that's a great goaltender name as well. Comesso in goal, it sounds right. Rough debut, but outstanding shutout. I think that's also promising. This team is just promise and potential, and I just think it's really exciting. And I think there's a chance you could scrape into the playoffs through the wildcard spots this year, and I think that would be such a big push in morale in that building and for you and the fan base in Chicago.
Massively.
Good times looming.
Massively, and like you said, they've absolutely been sharing the scoring out in that 7-3 victory against the Blues. They had 7 different goal scorers, and they're getting goals from up and down the lineup. From some of the veterans, some of the a lot of the youngsters. Louis Crevier chipping in with another goal, the big 6'9" defenseman. They've really kind of banded together and figured things out in Bedard's absence, and now that he's back, and I believe that Frank Nazar's quite close to returning as well. It'll be good to see sort of what this team can do for the rest of the season, and exciting times looming.
Yeah. Anything more you want to say about Chicago, or shall we move on?
No, we'll go to the next one.
We'll go to the Blues, 7th place, down 2 spots, 42 points. They've had a poor week, having lost every single game. Blackhawks 7-3, Mammoth 4-2, and the Golden Knights 4-2 as well. They're sat on a minus 47 goal differential, record of 17, 21, and 8. Return of the horrific goaltenders, again, not scoring any points at all. Thomas on 33 points in 42 games. And Buchnevich on 24 in 46 leads this team. Rubbish.
They're ass. They're just not a good team. Goaltending's been a problem all season. As we've spoken about. I don't really have too much on this team other than they're just not a great hockey team. They don't have much offense. Their defense is kind of mid. Their goaltending's really poor. If Binnington starts for Canada at the Olympics, I'm going to absolutely riot.
Yeah. They're just self-sacrificing there. No doubt he might actually probably play really well. But that's not what we want, not what the other goaltenders for Canada deserve. We've touched on the fact that Binnington was going to get pulled and then they couldn't find Hoffo, so it's a further joke. They got games against the Hurricanes, Lightning, and the Oilers. Not much more for me to say on this team. They're not going to make the playoffs, I don't think, at all.
No chance.
And then that leaves us with what's really quite surprising. The bottom place team in this division is the Winnipeg Jets, 3 points behind the Blues. They've had a bit of a comeback, though. They lost against the Golden Knights in overtime, 4-3, and they lost against the Oilers 4-3. But then they've come out and beat the Kings 5-1 and the Devils 4-3. So they've got a couple of wins, and in overtime, so they've got 5 points out of 8 this week. But they're just so far off now, it's going to be hard to see them make a comeback, really.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's a case with Winnipeg where the damage has been done. They've been so poor for the last 8 weeks that they're just they're out of it now, I think, and they're just looking really rough. Good for them to get a couple of wins in there, absolutely. But I just think they've just set themselves such a mountain to climb now. Being sat on 39 points. I mean, it's not massively outside of the realms of possibility. I mean, I know Utah have 48 points. That's what, 9 points back of the fourth place team. But just with the way that they've played this season, I just can't see any world where they hit the consistency required to make any sort of kind of serious dents in this division. So, it's a shame. But I think this team is a lot better than what they've shown this season, obviously. And it might just be a case of resetting, going again next year, potentially adding a high level prospect into that system as well, and just see what they can do. But yeah, it's been a rough season for Winnipeg.
Hasn't it? Right, so we're going to jump into, and I think we'll do Stones of the Week. Or would
Big
you
time.
rather we do Cheeks?
Well, both Cheeks and Stones come from the same team, so we'll start with Stones because it's always good to sort of pump up a young player, I think. And
Yeah.
Luke Hughes of the New Jersey Devils having a bit of a bounce back. Obviously, kind of booed out the building by his own fans, which you never really like to see. It's not constructive to a young player whatsoever. Doesn't help anything. But stringing a couple of good performances together after that, really impressive from a young guy with a lot of potential, and he's signed a contract kicking in next year that's going to reflect that. And I know that things haven't gone that well for this week, as far as the team goes, but still good to see him bounce back from that and clearly not take it to heart too much.
Yeah. I think it's good to see. Good mental fortitude is a good sign for the future because everyone has off days and things like that. But he's really come back, and we'll cover the team in general in due course. But I just think that's a shining light moment, and I think well deserving of having the Stones for this week, really.
Yeah, for sure.
So speaking about the Metro, then that's what we're going to jump into now. First place in this division still remains the Carolina Hurricanes, 59 points, record of 28, 14 of 3 with a plus 20 so far in the season. 3 games this week, home games against the Stars, Ducks and Kraken, 3 wins, 6-3, 5-2 and 3-2. Plenty of players on a point per game. Mid kind of goaltending this week, but it hasn't mattered. They've got 3 wins.
Yeah, and look, your goaltenders can afford to have kind of off nights if your offense is rolling, and they absolutely have been. 14 goals in 3 games, 3 wins on the board. Keandre Miller coming in with 2 goals and 3 assists, so great performance there. Svechnikov with 4 assists, Stankoven with 3 goals and an assist. I really like Logan Stankoven. I think as much as the Mikko Rantanen experiment didn't work in Carolina, I think to get Stankoven back in that deal, I think was a good bit of business. I think he's a terrific youngster. And a couple more wins for Brandon Bussey. And look, I know it's maybe a bit early to talk kind of awards and Vezina and things like that, but I just kind of want to highlight something sort of really quickly. And obviously we've talked about Vejmelka being the first goalie to hit 20 wins. And Bussey's down there, he's got 16 wins. But just in terms of the goalies above him, you've got Wedgwood with 19, Vasilevsky with 18, Bobrovsky with 18, Shesterkin, Swayman, Saros with 17. And you look at the games played down there, Wedgwood's played 28, Vasilevsky's played 27, Bobrovsky 31, Shesterkin 34, Swayman 31, Saros has played 35 games this season. And Brandon Bussey's been able to get 16 wins from 19 games this season, which has just been such a great story. He's only got, kind of 2 regulation losses, 1 loss in OT. He's on a 904 save percentage for the season, 228 goals against average, and he's picked up a shutout as well. Not bad for a waiver claim.
Bad at all. And you look at goals against, that low at 2.28, but a save percentage of just over 900 suggests to me that he hasn't faced as many shots potentially as well as in comparison to other goaltenders, and it goes to show that this team is great as well. We've seen similar kind of results with Kochetkov as well when he played, and obviously we talked about the difficulties Freddie Anderson's had on the sticks as well. So not to be a Debbie Downer with it, Bussey is great, absolutely fantastic story, and should be in with the conversation. But I don't necessarily think that he may have come across as like a star player, but as a result of a great team playing well across the board, kind of thing. Do you know where I'm getting at?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying he's a shoo-in by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that you look up and down this league at teams that would absolutely kill to have a goaltender of that's played, as well as he's played this season. All right, okay, he's maybe not faced as many shots, but he has done reasonably well when it's mattered. And to have picked him up, say off of the waiver wire, I think there'll be a few teams that passed up on him. I think that'll be kicking themselves.
Absolutely. There's plenty of teams who could do with a goaltender right about now. But yeah, Carolina, great week for them. Maybe making that push to create that separation at the top of this division, which I think they are doing.
Yeah, they've got a 4-point stretch on the next team, so we'll move into them, shall we?
Yes. So remaining in second place is the New York Islanders. Still sticking around up there. I think they're a good team. They started off the week with a win against the Devils. Now, I think we're going to be talking about this game in more detail when we touch on the Devils, but let's just say it was a pretty clear, dominant victory. A shutout for Sorokin. But then they lost a shootout against the Predators 2-1, and then they beat my Wild 4-3 in overtime. So yeah, that puts them on 55 points and going strong.
Yeah, it does. Really great to see Anthony Duclair get, I believe, his first career hat trick, I think. Or it might have been his first career 4-point game or something along those lines. But yeah, great week for him. Obviously, that victory against the Devils was it was a weird one, wasn't it? Because statistically, they got outshot by the Devils, and a lot of people were saying that the Devils were actually the better team. Don't think the scoreline quite reflected it though. But
No.
yeah, they're midway through a road trip at the moment. They've got the Jets, the Oilers, and the Flames coming up in their next 3. So yeah, again, definitely some opportunities there to keep them riding high in second. Maybe make a push on first. There'll be a tough game away in Edmonton for sure. But yeah, they're going strong, going good, and yeah, playing well.
Yep. And for, I think, the second week in succession, the third place team haven't moved a spot. It's the Philadelphia Flyers. 52 points, 22, 13, and 8 with a +5 plus minus. 3 games, 3 points, Matt. So 5-2 wins against the Ducks, a 2-1 overtime loss to the Maple Leafs, and then the 7-2 blowout loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we've seen a fair amount from Philadelphia this season. They are capable on their night of playing some good stuff, and beating the Ducks 5-2 is a great result for them. I think against Tampa, I think it was just a gap in class. I think I know Urson didn't have a great game in that one. I know Urson's not been terrific all season, to be honest. I don't think he's a particularly special backup. Yeah, I think it was just a golf in class in that one. Dvorak with 3 assists in those 3 games. Um, they've got another game coming up against the Lightning tonight, which I'm sure they'll be hoping for some sort of retribution in that one. Then they've got a couple of road games against the Sabres and the Penguins before returning home to face the New York Rangers. So, yeah, again, it's I'm not really sure what to expect this next upcoming week from Philly, but we'll have to wait and see and see if they can kind of keep hanging around in this spot or whether they kind of peter off a bit.
Yeah, they're kind of a mid-team. I think our analysis of this team has remained consistent throughout, and I don't think there's any deviation from that at the moment. I do think there is a big drop-off between Vladar and Urson in goal, both in terms of win conversions and also just stats in general. But yeah, I'm happy to move on with this team. There's not much more to really say about them,
Yeah,
really.
no, not at all, not at all. Let's move into fourth.
So in fourth place, up a spot, also on 52 points, is the Washington Capitals, colour 23, 17 and 6, on a plus 17, and I think probably a lot better team than where they're at the minute still. They keep flip-flopping, in this week especially. They beat the Ducks 7-4 before losing to the Stars 4-1, and then beat your Blackhawks 5-1, and then lost 3-2 to the Predators. So, but I think, again, the same analysis of this team has been the same throughout the year in terms of that they're just a better team, but they need to sort themselves out a bit. Great goaltenders, plenty of players chipping in, Ovechkin with 5 goals. But yeah, Capitals not quite separating themselves.
No, they've been a little bit up and down. They've been a little bit streaky this year. But again, first and foremost, Alexander Ovechkin, 5 goals and an assist on the week. I wouldn't say this is a pointless glazing stat, but he's hit 20 goals for the 21st consecutive season. That's only been done by one other person beforehand. So, I mean, he's the leading goal scorer in NHL history. So he was always. It's always fair to assume he does pretty well season after season, but he's just solidifying his legacy at this point, and he's still able to to pop plenty of goals and look good doing it. So well done to Ovi on that one. Favari with 4 assists on the week, both Carlson and McMichael with a goal and 5 assists, Sordif with 4 goals and 2 assists. So a bit of an up and down week. I think they are capable of leapfrogging this Philadelphia team, but again, they just need to kind of sort themselves out. They've got 3 games coming up at home to do that against the Habs, the Sharks, and the Panthers. So it's not going to be easy for them, but nevertheless, I think they've still got an opportunity to to still make some headway here.
Yeah, a goal record involving Alex Ovechkin is akin to saying you'll find the most amount of water in an ocean. I think. But no, it is good for him, and he had a slower start to the year, didn't he? And we thought that this might be it, the retirement tour, but he's coming back. He's still putting the puck in the back of the net, so who knows? But I think I'm in line with the fact that the Islanders are doing well enough to be worthy of a playoff shout. I don't think necessarily the Flyers are, especially top 3 in a division. I think this is the Capitals team, which is going to be the one to maybe take them over at some point, but remain to be seen.
Yeah, I think especially with like the team beneath them and everything, I think that Washington are the most likely, I think. But we'll move into 5th anyway and get on to them.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, down the spot, 51 points, had just dropped behind 21, 14 and 9, the record with a +5. 3 games, 1 win against the Devils 4-1, but then losses against the Flames 2-1, and then got shut out against the Bruins and lost 1-0. It's bit of a low wattage affair this week for the Penguins. No players at a point per game, but positive goaltending from Skinner.
Yeah, he's had a couple of decent games. Obviously played well in that in the victory against the Devils. Played well as well in that 1-0 loss to the Bruins as well. Yeah, good to see him. Kind of getting a couple of decent games. I mean, I know he's not. He's not Martin Brodeur or anything like that, but he's far from it. But he's it never hurts, does it, when someone has a couple of good games? Just, if nothing else, just for a bit of a confidence boost. And I think Skinner's been kind of getting pelters for a couple of years now, so be good for him if he can string some consistency together in Pittsburgh and start to kind of improve his reputation.
Absolutely. There isn't much for really analysis for me on the Penguins this week.
No, I think you summarised it perfectly.
And Blue Jackets coming up, but that's
summarised it perfectly. In fact, it was a really low wattage, bit of a really sort of nothing kind of week. Really, there was just kind of mid. Good for Skinner, but nothing else on me.
Cool. Right. Let's talk the New Jersey Devils. Okay. A team who are in a tailspin of massive proportions. There's a bit of a gap between the Penguins and the Devils now. 46 points they have. They remain in 6th place, record of 22, 21 and 2. We've touched upon Luke Hughes having a bit of a bounce back week, which is great. Jack Hughes has come back and is been doing okay, but they lost 9-0 to the New York Islanders, lost 4-1 to the Penguins, and then lost 4-3 against the Jets. They are just going down, down, and down.
Yeah, this team season seems to be kind of playing out like the plot of the Titanic. The start of the season, it was all good and everyone's thrilled to be aboard the Titanic, and Jack Hughes then has a dinner-related injury, and they clip the iceberg, don't they? And then it's just been sinking. It's just been sinking, and I think they're now at the point where all the musicians are playing their final song, their final kind of quartet. I'm pretty sure soon we're going to see Jack Hughes on a floating door trying to hold on to Luke Hughes. Where there's definitely room for both of them on the door, but he's just going to let him down. But yeah, I
was thinking of that exact same thing, but swap Rose for Jacob Markstrom and Jack Hughes in the water, trying to get back on.
Oh yeah, well yeah, Markstrom's not saving anything, is he? So he's definitely not saving Jack Hughes. Yeah, it's just an absolute dumpster fire right now in New Jersey, and well, we've said all season, haven't we, that they're fragile. They're both physically and mentally just not up to task, I don't think. And then they've got to go to Minnesota tonight and play them as well. So they have a couple of home games after that against the Kraken and the Hurricanes. But yeah, it's been a rough one. As the musicians in the Titanic say, it's been a pleasure playing with you, gentlemen, and as the ship is just sinking into the water. They're done.
I can't believe it. We had this team when we last did a power ranking, and we need to do one soon, I reckon, because we got them as the 6th best team in this league. Because we had our doubts about them, but they were performing at a high level, and they were doing well. But since then, it has just been thing after thing after thing, and I just can't see them being able to catch themselves. Yeah,
I've started seeing New Jersey fans starting to blame Tate McRae for their dip in form. It's like just clutching at straws.
Oh, thank God.
Like, oh well, Jack Hughes is distracted because of Tate McRae, and it's like I don't think that you can blame a musician for your team's running form. Yeah, that doesn't fly for me, but hey ho.
I don't see New Jersey fans eating all of their food with plastic cutlery now.
Just eating with their hands. Just
Because
just
I tell you, like that knife or whatever it was, that metal knife has caused more damage than Tate McRae has. That's for sure for this season.
yeah, whether it was
So
a
I think
knife, whether it was a
in
glass
defense,
or something like, we'll never know what happened. But yeah, that has been more catastrophic to the New Jersey Devils season than Tate McRae has. I don't think Tate McRae has anything to do with Jacob Markstrom's inability to stop a puck. So yeah, let's lay off her a little bit.
yeah. Oh dear. Even if her music isn't quite to one's taste, but yeah. Um, move on then into thank goodness for the New Jersey Devils, because otherwise we'd be ranting on the New York Rangers some more. The best thing about the New York Rangers this week is their record currently stands at 2026,
Nice.
which is just, I don't know. That tickles my brain in such a way that I quite like this team this week, despite the fact they're in seventh place, remain in that spot on 46 points, 3 games, 3 losses, they're one in overtime. Again, they lost 3-2 to the Mammoth in overtime, 5-2 to the Sabres, and then we should be shouting at this team a bit more, but they lost 10-2 to the Bruins, but the Devils just sort of taken their mantra for the worst team
Yeah,
in this division really this week.
I almost just like can't be bothered to be angry at this team though, because they're just like I already checked out from this team weeks ago. And I think it's just like being angry at this team is just like expended energy that doesn't need to be spent. Like I just can't. I just don't have it in me to be frustrated. And yeah, thank God for New Jersey being almost as terrible as they are, because they're stealing kind of a few of the headlines at the moment and somewhat detracting from what you describe as the one of the Tiffany franchises just being absolutely awful. But yeah, it says a lot when their the layout of their record this season is like the best thing on the week. I mean, okay, yeah, 5 points in 3 games for Zibanejad. He had a decent week last week as well, so good week for him. Panarin with 5 assists as well. Panarin's a free agent at the end of the season. Don't know if he gets. Don't know if kind of what he garners on the market, but I don't. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, he's going to be 35 next October. Well, sorry, this October, sorry. Currently makes 11.64 million. I mean, he's not going to be getting anything more. It's going to be a slightly cheaper deal. I mean, I don't know if he re-signs in New York. I don't know if he goes somewhere else. I don't know if he gets traded at the deadline this year, but yeah, I don't know.
I see him going to the retirement home that is called the Nashville Predators.
Yeah. Christ.
He's prime Nashville Predators. Stamkos, Panarin, O'Reilly, all on like
Marcia
the same line.
Shea, yeah,
Marcia,
like
so
yeah. Do you see him maybe being traded at the
yeah,
deadline? I mean, it's a tricky contract to shift, isn't it? Is 11.5 million. I don't know, like maybe
yeah.
someone, and I know we've floated it a lot this season, but if they'd been better this year, you would have thought of maybe someone like Florida. If they were in a playoff push, then maybe being able to add Panarin for kind of just shy of 6 million to kind of take the Barkov salary for the rest of the season. Maybe that would have been good. I just don't think that the Panthers are really close enough for that, or whether he gets added to the Avalanche or maybe even somewhere like Detroit. I mean, him and Patrick Kane had such a good relationship when they were at Chicago. And with Detroit being where they are now, that could kind of solidify them into a decent playoff push. I don't know. I think Panarin could be an interesting conversation around the trade deadline for sure, I think.
I don't see him being moved personally. I think the Rangers are still in the land of delusion where they think they're going to be a great big team and they want to keep their best players and make a push. That's just where I get it from, where I think. And they got a new coach this year. Matt Sullivan's come in and is wanting to stamp his authority on the team as well. But I just don't think that franchise will allow one of the only players that is actually performing for them this year to leave for that purpose.
I suppose it kind of depends, doesn't it? If they've had that contract discussion and if Panarin's made it clear that he's not going to re-sign in New York, then for me, you get him traded. I still think you could get like a first round pick for the way that he's played this season. But if he alludes to the fact that he wants to maybe stay, then I suppose you maybe keep hold and run it back next year and see if you can do better. But obviously we are not privy to the conversations that happen in the New York Rangers, GM's office. It'd be a lot cooler if we were, though.
No, maybe or maybe not. We might just throw ourselves out of that window from that meme when you try presenting an idea at the boardroom. I think Shesterkin picked up an injury in the Mammoth game. Obviously, Quick's been playing, and then he had an awful game against the Bruins. Traded out for Spencer Martin halfway through, and Martin did equally as terrible. So I'm not sure. I haven't actually read up on what the prognosis is for Shesterkin, whether he'll be back. But I think any hope for this team relies on that because so Quick has got some decent stats. He doesn't win games, but yeah. We'll move on. Yeah, we'll move on into the 8th place team in this division, and I'm a team that again scratches my head because they're better than this, but they keep losing games. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 45 points in their games, a record of 19-7, not quite 2026, but on a -18. Middle of the way trip, Sharks lost 5-2, lost 5-3 against the Golden Knights, 4-0 against the Avalanche, but then did beat the Mammoth in overtime 3-2. I just think this team's better than where they're at. When we talk about the Devils and the Rangers and these teams are going on big skids, but yet Columbus is still at the bottom. I just can't get my head around it.
Yeah, I'm going to try my best not to laugh at big skids. But I think you're absolutely right. I couldn't do it. I think you look at some of the teams in this division, and it's kind of a bit of a mystery that they're so far down. Because I think you look at the way this team plays, and they play quite well, and they've got some good guys on that roster. They just don't have the depth scoring, I don't think, and I think that's kind of what lets them down. As we've kind of said week after week with this team, Werenski is leading the points on that team, and he's a terrific player. But and Marchenko's a very good player as well. But after that, they just don't really have the. I need to see a little bit more from Adam Fantilli and Dmitry Voronkov as well. I think they just need to provide a bit more kind of scoring on this team, and I think that's kind of what's letting them down at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like every time I watch them, they're either in games or they're close and they lose them. And I don't know. I think it's getting to the point now where they might just be, this is just who they are, and they're not going to make that push. As the dust settles in the league and we start to see the picture form, and they're going to be sort of out of it. But yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree on that one, I think. I think that's a reasonable place to end the Metro, and we're moving into Cheeks of the Week. I don't think there's any surprises on this one.
No, and yeah, okay, we're going a bit Devils heavy in this podcast, but Jakob Markstrom, and a week or so after he's been announced as part of the Swedish Olympic team with the Minnesota Wild lads, he comes out and has an absolutely abject performance. And I don't know in what sense where they didn't pull him from the game because, as you said, he had a 6.25 save percentage in this game, conceding 9 goals. 6.25. Do you know, like goalkeepers have poor games and they still have like an 800 save percentage, maybe dip into the 700s, but he's almost let in a goal every other shot he's faced.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I'm just having a look to see if anyone else has done worse than that this year. I don't think they have. No, I
No.
can't see anyone else who's done worse than that for me. Yeah, I don't know if they. Maybe sometimes you just have the acknowledgement, don't you, that it's just not your night, and sometimes they will just leave a goaltender in, and just think, the hockey gods aren't smiling on us tonight. Don't know what's going to happen. So we're not going to dent the confidence of two goalies. We're just going to sort of eviscerate the confidence of one instead. And I know sometimes teams don't do it if they're on a back to back. If they've got a game coming up the next night, they'll think, you know what, we'll just ride this goalie out because we don't want to kind of fatigue another goalie in the process. But they played on the 6th against the Islanders, and they didn't play the Penguins until the 8th. So yeah, I don't really know what the thought process was behind that, but yeah, that was just an abject performance from Markstrom, and like you said, in a week where he's been announced on the Swedish Olympic team, and it's a really was an opportunity for him to get the bit between his teeth and try and stake a claim for at least the rotational option, if not the starting position. I just can't see any world where he starts over Wallstedt or Gustafsson. I think they're both leagues above him.
I watched a few of the goals that were scored against me in that game, and not all of them were just. It's not like he had a making mistake after mistake, goal after goal. Some of them were just he was just outplayed, and everything just seemed to find a way to get in. But yeah,
Yeah,
cheeks of the week, Jacob Markstrom. Sorry,
easy.
mate. Let's see. Oh dear. Right, and before we move on, I think you got some interesting statistics to go through regarding that game. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for anyone who's unfamiliar, the website MoneyPuck, not a sponsor of this podcast, but if they want to hop on board, they are more than welcome. It's a great stats website. So they break everything down, game to game, player to player. It's super in depth. And just on that, the 9-0 victory for the New York Islanders, they run a simulation of the game 1,000 times to figure out what they call like a deserve to win-o-meter. The New Jersey Devils had a 73.8% deserve to win o-meter compared to the New York Islanders 26.2. In addition to that, expected goals. The Devils had an expected goals of 3, whilst the Islanders had an expected goals of 1.61. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, how certain people have off nights, and I think that may go down as one of the biggest off nights I think I've seen in hockey in many years.
9-0, and those are the stats from it. It's just again, it may show how illegitimate these stats are. I don't think they are. I think they're like fairly based in some sort of science, but it's just you do have the freak occurrences, don't you? But that 9-0 losses that might kill your season for later down the line when if it ever comes down to plus minuses or anything like that. 9-0 mental.
Yeah, it's absolute madness.
Yeah. Um. So we'll move on and then into the last division. Um, I think arguably now it is the weaker division out of all four, but that is the Pacific Division. And we'll lead off with the first place team, still remaining in first place. It's the Vegas Golden Knights, 54 points, 21, 11, and 12 record. +8 so far on the thing, but yeah, 4 games, 4 wins for the Golden Knights. So the Golden Nuggets have pulled it all together.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say they've kind of rebounded off of last week's Nugget performance. Yeah, decent week for them, and just when it kind of seemed like they were trying to let this lead slip in the division, they've kind of come out and got some wins, under their belts. Albeit, they've beaten the Jets, the Blue Jackets, the Blues, the Sharks. So as much as we enjoy that San Jose Sharks team, they're still kind of way off in terms of the contenders in this league. And so I think they had quite a straightforward schedule. They've got the Kings, the Maple Leafs, and the Predators coming up. So again, you would maybe fancy them against Nashville, but the Maple Leafs and the Kings are gonna be tough games for them. Thomas Hertl, though, absolutely going off on the week. 3 goals and 6 assists for him. As well as 3 goals and 5 assists for Mark Stone, who is at 41 points now in 28 games. If they're up to date, regardless, Mark Stone, since returning from injury, has been absolutely outstanding, and for me, fully deserving of his spot on the Canadian roster for the Olympics for what he kind of provides in a lineup. But yeah, good return to form for Vegas.
Yeah, still some shaky goaltending. Carter Hart went out with an injury in the game against the Blue Jackets and hasn't returned. So Lindblom comes through with arguably the best performance of the week. Annoyingly for my fantasy team, Mitch Marner does get the odd assist every now and again, but even in that 7-2 win against the Sharks, he had a pointless game. It's just not scoring enough goals for me personally. But that serves me right for having a Vegas player on my team, I think.
Yeah, completely. That's all on you, mate.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We're moving to the second place team in this division. Another team that's been on a storming run as of late, the Edmonton Oilers. They remain in second place on 51 points, record of 22, 16 and 7. Still with a 0 plus minus, but they've had a week where they've beaten the Predators 6-2, the Jets 4-3, and they lost in a shootout against the LA Kings. So I think they've made that progress now. They're up in the playoff positions. I don't think they're going to drop away anytime soon either.
No, and I just think you look at the spring to life that McDavid and Draisaitl have had as the season's gone on. McDavid now tied for points with Nathan McKinnon. It's going to go. It's going to be a tight one for the Hart Trophy this year. That's for sure. But yeah, they're an offensive juggernaut. We know this. We know this by now. And their goaltending just needs to do enough. On the night, it was a good kind of comeback victory against the Jets. Unlucky to lose in the shootout to the Kings, but I think they're quite solidified now, and I think they've been quite fortunate. I think in the quite poor nature of a lot of the other teams in this division. I think that's allowed them to kind of spare their blushes a little bit from their early season form.
Yeah, I mean, I put this team in with the same sort of 3 section with the Panthers and the Maple Leafs, and the Maple Leafs and Panthers both play in the Atlantic. We've talked about how a lot of those teams are on a big run right now, so it's harder to rescue that poor start. Whereas the Oilers are in a division with one of the 3 sort of worst teams in hockey, really, in combination for the most part. So they've been afforded the luxury of making that step up. So lucky them.
Yeah,
I don't like either of these teams. The Oilers, all the Golden Knights, are just kind of meh me out. I can't. Yeah.
I'm not. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of a lot of the teams in this division. Really, I think maybe outside of one of the teams we'll get to later down in this list, there's quite a lot of teams in this division that don't really do a lot for me. Yeah, not my fave.
Maybe partially because a lot of their games are on a lot later for us in the UK. The sort of 3 a.m. games because they're on the West Coast.
Yeah, I think that maybe plays a part. Less exposure.
Yeah, so you don't watch them. Yeah, we don't watch them. We haven't really fallen in love with them. We can always get into the good old sort of Metro games. They always like get the best spots, really, don't they? I think.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll move on to the third team then, and you'd expect, having listened to several weeks of this podcast, it'd be the Anaheim Ducks, but no, it's not. Up 3 spots this week, sat on 49 points. 49 points. It's the San Jose Sharks. Record of 23, 19 and 3. So the last team in a playoff spot in this division is sat on a -19 plus minus. I mean, they've had a good week of it in terms of gathering points and made a bit of a meal of it if they're going to be a very successful team. But they beat the Blue Jackets 5-2. Then 2 overtime wins in a row against the Kings and the Stars. So great results there. And then lost 7-2 to the Golden Knights, like we've just discussed.
Yeah, and look, we know at this point this is a team being kind of single-handedly carried by Macklin Celebrini. I mean, it just goes to show he's factored in over half of the San Jose goals this season. He's just been a different level this year. Super impressive. He's one shy now of his goal tally from last season. He's already at 24 for this year. He got 25 in 70 games last year. He's already overtaken his both his points total and his assist total from last year. And he's just on an absolute tear. But yeah, they made a bit of a meal of a couple of those games, but they were able to clutch them up and get over the line. But their offense is rolling, and when it rolls, they get wins. But on the nights where they do struggle, and they get shut down a bit more, as we saw against Vegas, they got blown out the building 7-2. Even in those 3 games that they won, they still conceded 9 goals across those 3 games. So you're conceding on average 3 goals a game. It's just very fortunate that their offense is clicking right now and finding a way to get them wins in the column.
Let's have a quick look at the goals conceded, because you look at the goaltenders, both of them, despite the wins, Askov's got 16 wins in 29 games. Neither of them, him or Nedeljkovic, has had a shutout. They're both averaging over 3 goals a game, and both save percentages are in the 90s. So, and I've just had a quick look at the stats now. They are the second most leaky team defensively in this entire league, with number 1 with a team that I feel like we're going to talk about it with some detail later on. So I'll let you know which team that is when we talk about them. But that includes both Western and Eastern conferences. They are the second worst defensively team. They're still scoring plenty. It just seems like when they do lose, they do get blown out.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Still an interesting team. If he carries on like this, it'd be great to see the Sharks in the playoffs. But I don't quite see it yet. But
yeah. No, maybe a year or 2 away.
Yeah. So the 4th team in this division, remaining in 4th position on 48 points, record of 20, 15, and 8, is the Seattle Kraken. Okay, now we've given this team a bit of stick, but they've recorded some decent games this week. They beat the Flames 5-1, the Bruins 7-4, and then lost to the Wild in overtime 3-2, and lost to the Hurricanes 3-2. That in regulation. So they come out with it with 5 points out of 8. So good going for the Kraken, and some entertaining games within there.
Yeah, and you look at them in comparison to someone like the San Jose Sharks, and I think one of the things that we've discussed at length about the Seattle Kraken this season is that real lack of, an out-and-out star player. I mean, Matty Beniers is a good player, and Vince Dunn's a good player. Capo Caco, I think, has kind of failed to live up to the hype. I think he was a 3rd overall pick, I think, was Caco. McCann is decent, but their top point scorer this season is both Jordan Eberle and Matty Beniers, who are both on 28 points for the season. Eberle doing that in 41 games and Beniers in 43. And you just compare that to a team like the Sharks, who have Celebrini just blowing the league out the water, and even sort of even after that. They've still he's got 70 points. Toffoli's got 32, Wenberg's got 32, Smith's got 29, Eklund's got 29, and Will Smith's been out injured for a few weeks now. But they're finding a way to still stay sort of in the conversation. So, it's kind of like the sum of the parts being greater than one individual player. But I just think if this Seattle team wants to go anywhere significant, they're gonna need they're going to need that star. Obviously, they are just quite hard to go out and just acquire one. So they're going to have to unearth one from somewhere, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're good enough not to be near the bottom of the league and get a higher draft pick, etc. But they're also not a good enough team to acquire like that star player in free agency. But I mean, this team are a nightmare to plan for around it in these templates that I create, because we have the top 5 players for the scorers, etc. And they're always constantly changing. There's always new players up and in. The top 5 players are 28, 28, 27, 25, 25 points, which suggests to me, and I'm always moving up and changing them. So there's a lot of players contributing a middling amount of points. So I think maybe you're right, but in terms of team balance, that they're definitely there. They're a well balanced squad, and they seem to get the results. But again, there's no star, there's no fireworks, there's no, and that's the difficulty we've been having with this team, really.
Yeah, and even just looking now on Puckpedia, Seattle have they only have kind of they've currently got $8 million in cap space, and I'm kind of struggling to see where a lot of that money's going. Beniers is making 7. Chandler Stevenson, who, okay, granted he's he's been out injured. He's on 6.25. They've got Schwartz on 5.5, McCann on 5, Eberle on 4.7. They've just kind of got a lot of money tied up in some reasonably kind of mediocre players. I mean, 5.25 million for Adam Larson seems like quite a lot of money. So not only is it the case that they don't really finish low enough down the standings to, to get those big draft picks, and not only are they really kind of the market where they struggle to get the big fish in free agency, as not that there's many big fishes in free agency as much now with the rising cap, but also they don't really have the cap space to go out and overpay for that free agent and offer them that extra couple of million incentive to get them over the line and bring them into Seattle. So it's a bit of a head scratcher, really, as to kind of the direction this team goes. I think, like you said, I think they've got the kind of team spirit and kind of depth through the roster to sort of make some noise in a playoff, but I think they're so far away from being a cup contender. But then they're not also in like rebuild mode either. So it's I've just been kind of sat scratching my head here about the Kraken for the last 5 minutes or so, just not really sure what to make of them.
Yeah, I feel like we're both on the same point. We can talk about them, but it feels like it's just like this conversation. It feels like it's gone full circle, and we're right back where we started, and we're still stood there with a head scratch. And again, I'll bring up that John Travolta meme, looking around with his from Pulp Fiction, just like looking at I just don't know.
I just don't know.
I just don't know. We'll move into 5th place then. Remaining in 5th place is the Los Angeles Kings, also 48 points, so a close middle of the pack here. Record of 19, 15, and 10 on a -6. The LA Kings have had a kind of a weird week. They've had pretty much every single result you can have in the 4 games. They beat the Wild 4-2, lost to the Sharks in overtime, then had a straight up loss to the Jets, and then beat the Oilers in a shootout. But yeah, 4 games, no player at a point per game. So again, a very LA Kings week.
Yeah, complete mixed bag, like you said. Again, they're just a bit sort of uninspiring, I think, is kind of how I feel with the Kings. They're kind of quite an uninspiring team as a whole. Again, and I know we've touched on it regularly throughout the season about the kind of brand of hockey that they play, and they're maybe not the most exciting team in the world to watch. They're quite suffocating defensively, and but they just don't have an awful lot that gets me out my seat and gets me excited. I think they could maybe be a team who might see themselves kind of on the precipice of a playoff spot and might look to maybe add someone around the trade deadline, but who that would be, I have absolutely no idea.
I echo a lot of sentiments there. They're almost akin to the Kraken, except I guess they're a more established franchise with a few players with more known names, essentially, really. But the record's exactly the same, or they're both on 48 points. They're just meh. My money's still on them to pick up a wild card spot in this division, or in this conference, really, and get to the playoffs. But I don't realistically see them going any further than the first round, really. But that's all I really have got to say about the Kings, personally.
Yeah, I just on kind of one final point as well is that I would like to see, and I appreciate, still only 23 years old, but I would really like to start seeing a bit more taking charge from Quinton Byfield. I think especially you look at, obviously, Kopitar retiring at the end of the year. Obviously, we know Kempe's re-signed. I think there's just a slot open there for Byfield to take charge, and he's got all the tools that a modern NHL player needs to be, an absolute animal in this division. But 26 points in 43 games this season, I think is not horrendous by any stretch of the imagination. He'll probably finish the year somewhere in the kind of 60 to 70 point region. But for a second overall pick and someone who is, he's 6'5", he's got speed for days. He's a really, really gifted player, and I like Quinton Byfield a lot. I would just like to see him kind of take charge a bit more and kind of start to assert his skills a bit more, kind of in the league as a whole.
Yeah, when you talk about these prospects and stuff, and you got Matty Schaefer coming in this year and doing as well as he has, being a second overall pick, you can expect a few years to get warmed up now. But even though he's only 23, he's played enough seasons and enough games in this league now where he should be taking charge a bit more if he's going to live up to his potential. Who knows, next year Kopitar leaves, it shifts, things change, and it becomes more his team, etc. I don't know. But
yeah, no, I
agree. It needs to step a bit more.
I echo your point exactly. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who's 23 years old, but has, he played in college until he was 21, 22. Byfield's played 303 NHL games in his career, and he's got 168 points, which kind of balances itself just shy of just over sort of half a point per game. So that kind of puts him in the realms of somewhere between a 40 and 50 point player at the moment, which, just for me, just isn't quite enough. And I don't know if that comes down to system. I don't know if that comes down to, the way that they play, and maybe isn't given as much sort of offensive license. And I know he also is quite good defensively, and obviously in terms of using his body and his strength and everything. So it's not all kind of just down to goals and assists, but I just want to see a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We'll go into what is the biggest talking point for me in this division this week. Essentially, this swap places with the Sharks, but it's the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah, the nice, young, explosive, exciting team that we're all dead happy were going to make the playoffs, and then they suddenly dropped off like a stone. 45 points, 21-21-3, the record. Now on a -7. They have had a horrendous away trip. Capitals lost 7-4. Flyers lost 5-2. Hurricanes lost 5-2. Sabres lost 5-3. They've conceded an insane amount of goals. The goaltenders are doing horrifically, and this is the team which has conceded more goals. The only team that's conceded more goals than the Sharks this year.
Yeah, like you said, they were explosive, but it's almost like they've pulled the pin from the grenade and forgotten to throw it. Everything's just blown up in their face. This last week or two, I do think that comes down sort of heavily on their goaltending a bit as well. I mean, whilst their offense probably hasn't been as fluid as you maybe would have expected, they've still scored. I mean, they scored 11 goals across those 4 games, so just shy of sort of 3 a game, which isn't terrible at all. but you cannot go conceding 22 goals in 4 NHL games. That will just get you nowhere in this league. Their goaltending's been a massive problem. They've tried Mrazek, they've tried Dostal, they've tried Husso in this road trip all on a stretch, and it's been really rough for them. Yeah, I don't really know where this team goes from here. I don't know if maybe they sort of look towards the trade market, in the goaltending department, but there isn't really kind of too much available, and they gave Dostal that contract at the start of the year to try and show their faith in him as being the guy. But he's really struggling, and Mrazek and Husso are absolutely fine sort of backup goaltenders in this league. I just don't know what's happened, and I don't know if they're being absolutely shelled by their defense or anything like that. But I mean, I know Lacombe got 5 assists on the week, which is decent for him, but defensively they've just been really poor, and they kind of need to kick this skid of bad form at the moment. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves out of that playoff conversation very quickly.
Yeah, they've got the scoring, they've got that, they've got the skill, and I mentioned this before, but once you have the ability to score goals and win games, you don't lose that. Like, there are teams out there who just struggle to get a win no matter the circumstances. This Ducks team have shown that they can play well and beat anybody, so it's there, it's within them somewhere. They just need to find it. What is concerning for me is that they've gone on a skid, but not like there are teams who've lost lots of games. Winnipeg Jets is a prime example where they've lost lots and lots of games, but the Jets have only conceded 138 goals on the year. This Ducks team has conceded 30 more than the Winnipeg Jets, who are like dead set at the bottom pretty much. So something isn't quite working, and they need to come up, whether it's a change of system, a bit more defensive solidarity, stop playing your first line all the time against like other teams' top lines. Maybe you need to get these defensive players on the ice and protect a bit more. I don't know. I haven't watched every minute of every game for this team, so, and I'm certainly not the best placed judge to make tactical considerations, but it is pretty clear as day that the leakiest team in the league, and that can't continue if you have aspirations to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, completely agree, and it's how you make that adjustment. Whether like you said, whether you sacrifice sacrifice a bit of offense for a little bit more of defensive stability. I don't really know where the answer lies, and I said I'm not a coach. You're not a coach. I'm sure there's guys being paid very handsomely to try and figure that out. So I hope for their sake they do, because this team's been really enjoyable for the first half of the season. It would just be a real shame for it to fall apart now.
Yeah. Was that little bit of Canadian eye that slipped in there?
Tiny bit,
with
yeah.
The oot.
Yeah,
Slipped oot.
Been watching too much hockey. That's
nice.
my problem.
Oh, I love to be Canadian. We'll move on into the 7th place team in this division. Still saying in 7th is the Calgary Flames on 42 points. This is another team who've conceded 30 goals less than the Anaheim Ducks, believe it or not. But I think we all know the biggest problem with the Calgary Flames is that they cannot score with any kind of consistency. They've lost 3 games, scoring 1 goal in each of those 3 games. It's the Kraken, Habs, and the Bruins. They did beat the Penguins, but they only scored 2 goals doing so. So again, they're just lacking any sort of offensive prowess.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to knock down a barn door with a lettuce leaf. They've just got a really blunt attack, and they're kind of like the anti-Ducks, aren't they? Whilst we know that the Ducks can score, they've just been struggling defensively and in goal. Like the Flames can't score, and they also struggle at the other end. So, I mean, look, they're kind of rooted around the bottom of this league for a reason. They've been incredibly poor, more or less from start to finish this season. They've rarely kind of hit a particularly great patch of form, and when it has, it's kind of been short-lived. they've still got the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks to go on that road trip before they head home and face the New York Islanders. So I don't really know where the Flames go from here. I think it's a bit of a lost season. I think they try and get themselves in a in a situation to poise themselves best for the draft, and just see what happens there.
Yeah. I see this team should go down the route more so like the Blackhawks and the Sharks and the Ducks, and just get younger. They don't have the roster capability to turn it around with the players they already have. So I don't see this team being successful while Kadri, Anderson are still there. See, Mikael Backlund, who, props to him, on a team full of minuses, he's on a plus 15 with 27 points on the year. So basic maths for me, that he's only conceded 12 goals this year while he's been on the ice, which is great. But again, is he going to be your future? No. He might be your Nick Foligno. Insert other aged veteran team on a young team for that experience and guiding them through. But really, they should be selling the stars for prospects, look to the future, rebuild. They've got a stud goaltender, and even Cooley's doing well as a backup. So that's kind of fixed. You just need to get some young players on the ice. Bit of promise. You're going to suck for a few years while you turn it around. But other than that, it's you kind of in that bigger purgatory, really, and living under the shadow of the Oilers.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does certainly sound like there's a lot of conversations happening at the moment around Calgary in terms of guys being moved. I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion now that Anderson is going to be traded. By the sounds of it, just from sort of what I've read and what I've heard, sort of in the hockey realms, it sounds like they want to get that done before the Olympic break happens. But I think with Anderson, I think a lot of teams aren't wanting to trade for him unless they know there's going to be an extension on the table. By the sounds of it, they've also received a lot of calls about Coleman, as well as Kadri as well, which are the names that we expected, really, when it came down to sort of trade discussions for this team. So yeah, they've. I have no doubt there'll be some moves taking place with kind of one eye on the draft and trying to just reload the prospect cabinet and refresh some picks as well.
Yeah. I want to propose I know it's not really trade season discussion for this episode, but what do you say if Rasmus Anderson go to the Utah Mammoth for Tej
Ginler?
Yeah.
Oh, I personally, I really like that trade. Not just for the Ginler landing in Calgary sort of situation, but I do think that you look at the Utah Mammoth. I think you look at a team who has a lot of very exciting offensive players, but maybe needs a bit of help on the back end as well. And I think that Rasmus Anderson would do that massively. I don't think just and let's say there was an extension on the table, I don't think just Tej Ginler's going to get that done. I think it would maybe be like Tej Ginler and like maybe a second. But that is absolutely something that would be on the table, and I would love to see Tej Ginler in Calgary, where his dad played, give him the same jersey number. That'd be great. I think having him on that roster with like Parekh and Coronato and whoever they get this year, that's a great shout. Love that.
Yeah. Utah Mammoth have got quite a few middle six players who would likely take up a lot of cap space in comparison to their playing time and potential. And Calgary, I imagine, I don't know off the top of my head, will have a lot of cap space in the coming years to use up. So I can also see maybe not a draft pick, but Tej and insert middle six forward going back to the Flames for Anderson, just in more of like a cap trade exchange as well, potentially. But We'll see. We're not general managers either. We're not coaches. We're certainly not general managers. We're just two hockey fans who love a bit of nostalgia and a Gimler in a Calgary uniform, young prospect. Sign it up. Let's do it. Work it out.
Yeah, so I mean, I just put that trade into a fantasy trade analyzer, and I don't know if this is purely on for people's fantasies, or for whether it is for like an actual, like the rating of the trade itself. They don't class that as a fair trade, but so I'm sure that would
In
there'd
what
be
way?
some. It seems to say it's minus
Which direction?
100 on it's minus 100 on Rasmus Anderson. I don't know if that means that one team's getting fleeced over the other. I have no idea. I don't know which side that.
Thanks for that useful analysis there.
Yeah. So yeah, ran it through a trade simulator. I've got nothing. In essence.
Okay. I really don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah, I tried to do something that would be helpful for us here, and instead it's just provided me with absolutely nothing. So, yep, do apologise. We'll move on to the 8th team, and then I do have something that will provide us with something helpful for the podcast when we wrap up.
Yeah, Trump's policy decision-making model, I think you're applying there, but we'll see. Right. We'll move on into the last team of this podcast. You can tell it's been a long one, eh? It's the Vancouver Canucks, who are having a long season. 37 points on the season so far. They played 3 games this week and lost every single one of them. The Sabres 5-3, Red Wings 5-1, and then the Maple Leafs 5-0. Minus 37. My boy Marco Rossi is on injured reserve again. Thatcher Demko's on injured reserve again. Ogren is now playing on the second line. And Ziv Boyum is still playing on the second D line there. So I think that pretty accurately sums up from my perspective in that this team is poor. Very, very poor.
Yeah, they are just shocking. Yeah, it just doesn't look good for them. And I think obviously with Hughes gone now, it's just not. Yeah, season's gone for them, I think. Yeah, it would be remiss to say that there's anything going on in Vancouver this year. I'm sad for Rossi obviously being on injured reserve, and I just hope he can find some form there. I hope for your sake, I hope that all the Minnesota boys that went there can do something productive on this team. But I just think the vibes in Vancouver are so bad right now that I just don't know where they go.
At least when they're having all this drama off the ice in years previous, they were still putting some decent hockey, playing some decent hockey. Whereas now they've seemed to have stabilised the off-ice stuff, and now they're being shite on the ice. So maybe what they need to do is they need to have a scandal somewhere in the back office, whatever. I don't know, some player needs to, so these rumours we talked about, where the Canucks players do something like that, and maybe they might actually start playing better again. Who knows? But it's another week where Quinn Hughes is still in the top 5 scorers of this team. How many games after leaving? So maybe next week's the week he finally drops off the scoring list for Vancouver, but I wouldn't hold out my breath either.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. There's not a great amount to be excited about there. But right, before we wrap up, right, I'm sparing my blushes here. I've sacked off this fantasy trade simulator, and I've done the classic going to ChatGPT. So I've analysed the trade for Rasmus Anderson and Tisha Gindler, and what ChatGPT, for all that is worth, recommends would be a fairly realistic trade for Utah to receive Rasmus Andersson would be Tisha Ginler, a top 10 protected first round pick, and a kind of B-level prospect / young roster player. How do you feel about that, Nathaniel?
I mean, if you're the Calgary Flames, you'd snap that up in a heartbeat with what they're doing. I think that's heavily leaned towards the Flames personally. And I know a first round draft pick is oftentimes used as like the promise of that and the potential of that pick always
It's a proper
like
carrot,
shines
isn't it?
bright like a beacon. It is a proper carrot. You might, as we touched on Quinton Byfield being a second overall pick, and he's a very, very solid player. So if I was the Flames, I would absolutely take that.
Yeah.
Without
And I
even
suppose
thinking about it personally.
if it was top 10 protected as well, so if it ended up falling in the top 10, it would kind of it would go over to the next year, for example. I think that kind of works out pretty reasonably well, because at the moment, I mean, we have no idea what Tisha Ginler is other than a really high caliber prospect. So yeah, I think that'd be reasonably fair. Yeah. Yeah, no issues there. But yeah, tried to rectify that because I provided absolutely nothing for you before.
Well, it certainly is much appreciated. I'm sure the general managers are paying close attention and are currently working furiously behind the scenes to make this work. I think in terms of market for the Calgary Flames, when you got the Oilers just up the road who are doing what they're doing with David and Draisaitl and things like that, get a bit of energy in your building, get fans invested, the reminiscence part of it, get a Ginler there, and you'll sell more tickets and sell more merchandise and keep things interesting in Alberta.
Yeah, for sure. So before we hit our closing segment with our points of the week, as our fourth segment, as we wrap up the divisions, via the website of Tankathon, which I've used countlessly over the years, they have an NHL draft lottery simulator. So it takes the current standings, current stats of where everyone is in the league. It sims the lottery and says, right, who right at this moment in time, who's getting the top 3 picks. So right at this moment in time, you are not going to believe it. Tankathon's 2026 Draft Lottery Simulator has the top 3 picks going to Calgary with the first overall pick, Vancouver with second, and Winnipeg taking the third overall pick. It also had Boston jumping 10 spots from 14th to 4th as well. Jesus Christ. But yeah, there you go. So they can get Tisha Ginler, they can get Gavin McKenna, and Calgary becomes a lot more interesting.
I've just had a quick look at that. Obviously, I think I've got slightly different results to you, but what's interesting to me is it also predicts sort of like the Stanley Cup final teams, which for mine is saying Tampa Bay Lightning and the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I don't think that's too ridiculous at all. But yeah, so it sims it kind of differently. Every time it just runs, because it's every team's got a different percentage chance of the number one overall pick, etc. So yeah, Calgary jumped 3 spots to 1. Vancouver and Winnipeg moved down 1 each to 3. So yeah, there you go. There's your weekly Tankathon spin.
Well, we should continue doing that until the Blackhawks get first overall pick.
Oh God, I would love
that. Again, no. We'll close this episode out then, as we always do, with a recap of the top point scorers of the week and therefore the season. In terms of this week, you got Thomas Hertel and Pasternak from the Bruins with 9 points each, and then the top goal scorers being McDavid and Ovechkin with 5. And a new name that we haven't seen yet for the Penalty Box Perspective Award for penalty minutes is the Ross Johnston from the Anaheim Ducks with 20 minutes in the box. Probably sick of playing and getting scored on, probably.
Yeah, either that or trying to fire up the team in one way or another. I mean, you can't knock a guy for trying. He's a proper fourth line grinder is Ross Johnston. So yeah, probably just trying to get something started there, much to his, well, for the team not responding.
Yeah. And then in terms of the season, top point scorers, again, we alluded to it earlier, McKinnon and McDavid both on 78 points, and Celebrini still in touching distance with 70. Go on, lad. Top goal scorers, McKinnon's jumped ahead on 36, and McDavid's with 30 goals, and Baldy for Richard on 27. Never mind Geeky, he's injured now, I think, as well. I think he's out for a bit, so
Yeah,
poor
he's
guy.
done.
But yeah, Baldy for Richard. Yeah. But again, Zadorov, 113 minutes in the penalty box is the most this season, with Kastelik catching up with him on 99.
Yeah, he's one very angry week away from being right up there, isn't he? So yeah, we'll see if he catches him.
One very angry week. Seems like me this week.
Right, guys. As always,
Right.
you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP podcast. You can also find us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us, any thoughts or feelings on the show at all. We've got some exciting things coming up, some exciting episodes, all sorts in the pipeline, so definitely going to want to stay tuned. You can catch us on our YouTube channel as well, where we post the episodes in audio format if you want to catch us there, and subscribe and like there as well. And as always, if you can leave us guys a 5-star review, it really helps us out, whether it's for our mock trades or tankathon spins. Make sure you drop us a 5-star review so that we push ourselves up the algorithm into the podcast streams of many other people. So yeah, as always, guys, thanks for being with us on the ride. Really appreciate you being with us here at the start of 2026, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.
Before we go, it took me 16 clicks to get Chicago to the number 1 overall pick. But
I'll
with
take
that, take care. Bye.